Hey, this is Mike Schmitz, and these are my sermon notes from June 12th, 2022. First thing that my pastor mentioned today was this idea of being willing to take another shot. And this is kind of inspired by a famous, I think it's a Wayne Gretzky quote originally, that you miss 100% of the shots that you never take. And so the whole idea being that, well, I might miss. We have that fear that holds us back sometimes. If I don't want to fail, I don't want to put myself out there and then find out that I can't do something. And just because you've missed a shot doesn't mean that you can't make it if you try again. And so I think that's a very good encouragement for everyone. Everyone can benefit from that encouragement to be willing to try again. Even if you tried something before and it failed, don't let that one failure define you. Failure doesn't have to be final. And then getting into the scriptures that my pastor was sharing, 2 Samuel 5:17-19, it says, when the Philistines heard that David had been anointed king over Israel, all the Philistines went up to search for David, but David heard of it and went down to the stronghold. Now the Philistines had come and spread out in the valley of Rephaim, and David inquired of the Lord, shall I go up against the Philistines? Will you give them into my hand? The Lord said to David, go up, for I will certainly give the Philistines into your hand. And the point my pastor was making was that David sought God when it looked like he didn't know what to do, when there was this big thing coming against him. He didn't try to figure it out on his own, and I can be guilty of that. He went and he sought God, and he asked God, what should I do? And God told him exactly what to do. And I feel like this is the thing that is not complicated about the Christian walk, but it's also not easy to do. We get in our own way a lot of the times because we try to figure it out. We try to connect all the dots. And really all we need to do is pray and then obey, do what God has told us to do. Deuteronomy 29:29 is the next verse here, and this says, the secret things belong to the Lord our God, but the things that are revealed belong to us and to our children forever, that we may do all the words of this law. And the thing that stood out to me from this verse is that the things that are revealed, so once you get revelation knowledge of something, not just information, not just something that you heard somewhere, but once you really understand it, it becomes alive in you. That is the thing that you now own, and no one can take that away from you. And so my whole approach to everything that I do in terms of my spiritual disciplines is to take ownership of more. Every time I open my Bible, I want to take ownership of a principle in there that I hadn't understood the previous time that I had done it. And it's the Spirit of God that reveals those things. I've been to Bible college. I have the degree, but it doesn't compare to when you see something a new way as you're studying for yourself. You can understand the Greek, you can understand the Hebrew, you can understand the cultural context and all the commentaries, and those things are great. But just because you read about something there, that was somebody else's revelation. You have to make it your own. You have to internalize it. It has to mean something to you before it really starts impacting the way that you see and the way that you live. And that's really where the rubber hits the road. The next verse here, I actually wrote down the wrong reference. This is 2 Samuel 5:20. This says, David came to Baal Perazim, and David defeated them there, and he said, the Lord has broken through my enemies before me like a breaking flood, and therefore the name of that place is called Baal Perazim. So Baal Perazim, really my pastor's whole point here, the whole title of his message was Lord of the Breakthrough, was that our God is a God of breakthrough. And that's what that name means. When we do things God's way, when we click into the anointing of God and we just surrender our own plans and our own ways of doing things, when we put ourselves in God's hands and we allow ourselves to be used by him, that's when the really incredible stuff happens. Over and over again in my life, I've seen that where I haven't known what to do and it looks like an impossible situation. And then I know that God's told me to do this one thing. Well, I don't understand how it's going to connect, how the end result's going to happen. Doesn't matter. You do that one thing. And then he makes a way where there wasn't a way before. And that's always cool when it happens. It's always annoying when I get in my own way and I realize that I prevented something like that from happening because I try to just naturally, I fall back into like, I got to understand how everything fits together, but I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough to do that on my own. I have to constantly be going to God and constantly be getting the plan and constantly be working that plan. That's what this last thing here is all about, gathering your own manna. That's what it means. You can't just go in the Old Testament. They were fed by manna in the wilderness every single day, and they had to go get enough just for that day. And then if they tried to get extra, then it went bad before the next day. And so they constantly had to be going and getting that fresh manna. That's what we need to be doing. What you got before, the revelation you got before, that's great. That can help you and you can put that into practice, but that's not going to be enough. You constantly have to be You got to keep going. You got to keep growing, as I say on this channel all the time. So 3 things my pastor identified for breakthrough in your life. Number 1, a word from God. Number 2, the willingness to do it. And then number 3, you have to sow the seed. You have to take action. You can't steer a parked car. There's got to be some action associated with it. So what does this look like for me personally? It means that I have to go to God and I have to get the plan. I have to surrender my own preconceived notions of how things are supposed to go. And number 3, I have to put it into practice. I have to create some sort of action. That is the moment that God can come and he can multiply things. I've seen it over and over again in my own life. When you put yourself out there, when you have faith in God, that's what action is. It's faith that God, you're going to come through for me this time. That's when the miracles happen. That's where the manna and the sustenance comes from. So those are my sermon notes. Hope you enjoy them.